These guys go hard. These guys go back and forth a lot. These guys put on a show. It's very easy to get caught by one of these shots. But I do think that this round or this fight is going to go to... What the fuck is going on, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome back to the Kevin Hoop Show. We are getting right into things with UFC 283. Finally, we've got to the end of this week, and we've got a good pay-per-view coming up tomorrow. Jamal Hill versus Glover Teixeira main event. And the supposed to be main event, the thing we're actually going to be talking about in this video, freaking got sidelined completely. Like, they're like, Brandon Moreno, Davidson Figueiredo? Yeah, just sit over there for right now. Now, I've been told that apparently the way they structure the pay-per-views is by weight class. So if there's a higher weight class that is fighting for a title, they are going to fight at the later time. So it is what it is. I kind of feel bad for him. I thought that they deserved the headline this fight, to be quite honest. If you guys don't know, this is the fourth time these guys are meeting in the octagon. And I honestly think that each and every one of these fights has been one of the most entertaining fights of the year every time that they fight. Now, going back in time right now, we go back to the first fight with these two, and they actually ended up going into a draw. Now, I looked at the stats. Davidson outstruck Moreno 137 to 132. And Moreno had 4 takedowns to 2. So, I mean, in the striking, it was pretty freaking close. Davidson Figueiredo obviously had a little bit slight of an advantage there. And Moreno had somewhat of the advantage, I guess, on the ground. Honestly, I think it deserved to go to a tie. You know, obviously Figueiredo had the higher strikes and Moreno had the higher takedowns. So, in my opinion, it's fair that it went to a draw. Moving forward, though, we go on to the fight between these two the second time. And it went to Brandon Moreno. And I don't know if Davidson Figueiredo was caught on an off day. I don't know if he didn't have a good training camp. But he didn't really look himself, and I don't want to give that to an excuse. Brandon Moreno looked absolutely phenomenal. And in my opinion, in the third fight, it might have been the same thing for Brandon Moreno. Maybe we caught him on an off day. But Brandon Moreno finished the fight in the third round with a submission.
Sideways and loading up his hips again. Oh, look at that.
Takedown.
Brandon Moreno gets him down.
A little high.
He's got both hooks. Elbow. Look at this. He's under the chin. Oh my God, he's got it. He's got it.
He's still fighting.
Look like he's got it. Brandon Moreno.
Which in my opinion is pretty impressive just because Davidson Figueiredo is from Brazil, and usually every Brazilian knows at least the basic fundamentals of jiu-jitsu. I know Figueiredo is more of a heavy striker, which is perfectly fine, but I did think that the submission in the third round was a little early. If anything, I was expecting that to happen in the fourth or fifth round. So the fact that it happened in the third round, I don't know if he got caught off guard. I don't know what the thing it was, but hats off to Brandon Moreno. He showed the fuck up, and in my opinion, he didn't show the fuck up as much in the third fight. And before we move on to that, I just want to say the stats in the second fight, how one-sided it actually was in the second encounter with these two. Brandon Moreno outstruck Davidson Figueiredo 71 to 33 in significant strikes, and Moreno had 2 takedowns to 1. So not only did he completely outstrike him by a shit ton, more than 50%, and he also completely destroyed him in the takedowns and on the ground. And he also had 1 knockdown, which I think led to the submission. So hats off to Brandon Moreno for not only showing up in the striking, which is Davidson Figueiredo's strong suit, but as well as going with the takedowns and showing a strong game on the ground. Moving on, though, I've already talked about it a little bit. The third fight between these two, it was honestly kind of back and forth. It was a pretty good fight overall. Definitely a good fight to watch. Brandon Moreno had more significant strikes, and Davidson Figueiredo had more knockdowns and takedowns. I do think that it was pretty close with the significant strikes, but at the end of the day, the decision went to Davidson Figueiredo, which it did go to a decision, which is a thing I think that we need to think about going into this the fourth fight between these two. I think that is something to think about. These guys are starting to know each other's games, and what are we going to expect in this fourth fight? Now, I think that these guys are both pretty evenly matched up. I do think that now that they know each other's games, like I just said, that these guys are definitely going to know each other's counters. They're going to know each other's strengths and weaknesses. You know, you don't just fight a guy 3 times and not expect something coming from him. So these guys have definitely got the timing down. I don't know how much they're going to really feel each other out in the first round. And really, these guys don't feel each other out as some other guys do and really start things low. These guys get right into things. Usually these guys I know have fought in one other co-main, and I know Brandon Moreno's coming off of fighting Kai Kara France for the interim belt, and that was a co-main event. So I do know that these guys might have a little bit something to prove, especially Brandon Moreno coming off of the loss from the belt. I do think that, you know, he doesn't really care about that interim belt as much as the actual belt. So he's going to be coming with some vengeance.
And I will strike down upon thee with great vengeance and furious anger those who attempt to poison and destroy my brothers.
Him coming with some vengeance like he did with the first and second fight, I think is exactly what he needs to do in this fourth fight. He needs to come with that dog, with that underdog mentality. I think in that third fight, Brandon Moreno was a little too big for his britches and maybe a little too overconfident in the fight, but honestly, if he comes with that dog mentality that he did in the first and second fight, I really believe that he can take this. Now, to add on to Brandon Moreno's resume right now, going up against Davidson Figueiredo for the fourth freaking time, I do want to add that he does have 6 years on the dude. That might have a little bit to do with maybe Davidson Figueiredo's been dealing with some injuries in the past. I don't really know. But, you know, all fighters really deal with some of those things leading up to, you know, how good of a training camp you're actually going to get. So I think Brandon Moreno being a little younger, it's always said that the younger people can heal faster. They'll stay kind of together and compact longer. Their freaking joints won't start falling apart once you start getting older. So that's something that Brandon Moreno might have, and might have a little bit more stamina, might have a little bit of that passion still in him. Davidson Figueiredo did get a title shot before him, even though Brandon Moreno started in the UFC first. It is what it is, but, you know, I'm sure Davidson Figueiredo was going off of somewhat of a good MMA career to get that title shot sooner, so he might have been in the limelight a little bit longer, and that might be something that he's now getting tired of and is ready to, you know, maybe he's losing the passion is kind of what I'm getting across. And I do think that Brandon Moreno still definitely has a lot of passion for the sport right now, especially with losing the title and knowing what it was like to hold the title and be the fucking man. He was the champ, baby. Woo! Now, to go on to the other side, Davidson Figueiredo does have the home field advantage, and anyone in Brazil knows that Brazilians are fucking passionate. So I do think that that's one thing to think about when it comes to Davidson Figueiredo's side of things. I think that the fans can give people in general a lot of energy and can maybe reignite the fire in them in the fourth and fifth round, or maybe if they're in a bad situation, you know, there's a cheer going on that makes them somewhat excited and gives them an adrenaline rush. So if something like that were to happen, obviously Davidson Figueiredo has that on his side. I'm sure there's going to be some fans for Brandon Moreno with it being a Brazilian crowd and Brandon Moreno fighting. But honestly, these guys have fought 4 times now. The Brazilians might have something against Brandon Moreno. We might get some boos Saturday night for Brandon Moreno, to be honest. Now, I really didn't know much of the background of these two fighters before they actually fought for the first time. It was kind of when I was first getting into the UFC. And I honestly became more of a fan of Brandon Moreno first. No rhyme or reason. It might have just been because Davidson Figueiredo has that gangster-like, hard-as-fuck motherfucker look to him, so that might have had something to do with it. Brandon Moreno just seemed a down-to-earth, really nice guy, and he had that dog mentality. He was the underdog in the fight. He was the guy who got the tie and basically set it up for the next fight for him to then conquer and capitalize on that opportunity in the second fight. So I think that that's something that really made me a fan of Brandon Moreno to begin with. But I do really think that Davidson Figueiredo does have a chance, but not as much as Brandon Moreno. And that's not just because I'm saying I'm a fan. I just want to let you guys know that I do have that opinion on him. But in this actual prediction, I do think that with what Brandon Moreno has with that dog mentality, it can do a lot of things for a fighter, especially going into training camp and putting in the work. I honestly think he's going to show up. If it goes to the 5th round, that's where I'll maybe give it to Davidson Figueiredo. But honestly, it's going to have to wait until we actually see the fight. Brandon Moreno might completely outstrike him again like he did in the second fight. We'll have to see. But I do think that this round or this fight is going to go to Brandon Moreno 110%. I'm not going to say necessarily what round. It could happen in any round. I don't think anyone was expecting it to happen in the 3rd round in the second fight. So who knows where the actual stoppage will be. But I do think that this will go to a submission or knockout, probably in the 4th or 5th. I'd say 60% chance knockout or submission, Probably 40% chance going to maybe even 30% it going to a decision though, because these guys go hard. These guys go back and forth a lot. These guys put on a show. It's very easy to get caught by one of these shots, and both of these guys have gotten knockdowns on each other, so it's definitely a high probability that it can go to a knockout or submission from a knockdown. So that's my prediction for this fight, guys. Hopefully you guys enjoyed it. A little bit of background on these two fighters and the 4 fights they're about to have. Let me know your guys' thoughts on the fight in the comments down below. If you guys enjoyed this video, don't forget to hit that like button. And if you're new to the fucking channel for the final and most probably not final time, hit that fucking subscribe button, please, and thank you. And with that, have a great rest of your weekend. Tune into the watch party. It's going to be going live at 10 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. Whatever time zone you live in, you guys can do the calculation for that. 10 o'clock, right when the main card starts. It's going live. It's going down on the Kevin Hoop Show. We're doing the watch party. We're drinking proper 12. We're drinking Howlerhead whiskey. Tune in. We do live bets on the fight, so tune in for that. And again, have a good rest of your fucking weekend. Bada bing, bada boom.